as we know, is one of the biggest buyers of products and services, from procuring foreign goods and services that can be procured locally. So thus reinforcing a strong commitment to economic independence, industrial growth, and national self-reliance. Now, today's session is going to give us an opportunity to deepen our understanding, share insights, and align on effective implementation. We have about 3 or 4 speakers that will be speaking to us during this 1.5 hour, 2-hour session. We have from the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Nura Abba Rimi, the Permanent Secretary, and he will be ably represented by Mrs. Olumuyiwa Ajayi Ade, the Director, Industrial Development Department of the Ministry. We also have the Director General, Bureau of Public Procurement, joining us in the person of Dr. Adebowale Adedokun. And then we have our chairperson of the Committee of Corporate Communications Public Affairs Expert, Mrs. Victoria Waduka. She will also be enlightening us on the employer's perspective. Thereafter, we will have a short interactive session, and then we will round up the program. I would like to start by leaving the floor to my Director General, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyenride, to give us the welcome remarks. You have the floor, sir. Good morning, sir. DG? Okay. The DG was online just now. Oh, he is online. DG, sir, you are muted. Waiting for the DG. While we're waiting for the DG, I would just like to just run us through some of the topics that we'll be having today, as well as what the expectations that we are expecting from you. We would first like to ask that we all remain muted while the sessions are going on. And if we have any would like to have feedback, we would please implore you to use the chat box for your comments and questions. So we can see on our screen the rundown of the events for today, starting with the policy itself, the unlocking opportunities for businesses and the economy, and then we'll have the procurement process and local content prioritization under the Nigeria First policy. And then we'll finally have sustainable business growth under the Nigeria First policy, implications for Nigeria First policy for business. So that is a rundown of events today. And before we start, I would just like to yield the floor to the Corporate Communications Chairperson to give us a few words just before we start. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Madam Nike. Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to this knowledge sharing session. I think that if there was a time where we needed to have this discussion, it is now, because it appears that all over the world there are no more sanctuaries for Nigeria. So we have to be intentional about our own growth, because growth is intentional. And the Nigeria First policy is one of the first frameworks that we have, for really driving and encouraging local consumption. And I mean, us being here is an indication of our interest and our strong desire for that to succeed. And reading through all the topics that are going to be discussed today, as Madam Nike has already shown us, it is bound to be a time where each of us will take away action points where we can intervene and where we can really make change happen at scale, because no one is going to do it for us. I look forward to inspiration and learning as well from everyone who is going to speak today. And we also look forward to interaction from the house, because it is a knowledge sharing session, not just about the presentations. So please engage with intent, and let's talk openly and honestly with each other so that we leave here with solutions that we can drive. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you
Madam.
very
I
much,
yield the
Ma.
microphone to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma. So at this point, I'd like to yield the floor to the Director General, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, for his remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nika. Thank you, Chair, for this wonderful session. We've not started. We are just starting. I know already that it's going to be a wonderful session for all of us, since it's at the heart of our national development, as it were. Whether we grow as a nation, the rate, how long it will take for us to grow, for us to develop, lies at the heart of how much we patronize Nigeria, as it were. So we've engaged constructively with the Ministry of Industry and Investment, the Presidency, the office that is driving the Nigeria First project, and the commitment that we have seen all over on focusing on Nigeria itself. The commitment we have seen is quite contagious. And for us, there's no option, no real option for us than to reduce as much as possible our propensity for imports, reduce as much as possible our propensity to put pressure on the naira, and also for governments to, as much as possible, create that environment that will enable organized businesses to backward integrate. Because government cannot say we should patronize Nigeria and then the goods and services that is produced in Nigeria is not competitive with those that are being produced across the border. So it's a joint effort, and government must provide that hospitable environment that will allow local manufacturers, local businesses to produce competitively. And we also, as businesses and Nigerians, must also be willing to give Nigeria and give Nigerian products and services a chance. So once again, I want to thank our colleagues that have pulled this through, thank the Committee of Corporate Communication, thank the Chair, and thank our resource person for their support in making this a very wonderful event. We have 89 persons already on the call, and we're hoping that before we end this call, we'll be looking at getting close to 200-300 participants, because this is, as I said, it's at the heart of our growth as a nation. So once again, we are welcome, and I also look forward to a very engaging and fruitful conversation. Thank you. Nick, back to you.
Thank you very much, DG. Thank you for your warm welcome. At this point, I would like to yield the floor to the Ambassador Nura Abba Rimi, the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, and he will be ably represented by Mrs. Olumuyiwa Ajayi Ade, the Director 2 of the Industrial Development Department. And she will be taking us on the theme for today, which is the Nigeria First policy, unlocking opportunities for business and the economy. Mrs. Ade Ajayi Ade, are you there, ma? Can we hear your voice?
Hello.
Yes, ma.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Yes, ma. You have the floor, ma.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. I want to use this opportunity to thank you and congratulate you on this noble idea for organizing this section. You know, I'm representing the I'm representing the Permanent Secretary, Ambassador Abba Rimi. So I will just be going through his presentation briefly. Thank you. The Nigerian Force Policy, let me see. Nigerian Force Policy, unlocking opportunities for businesses and the economy. This is a presentation by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Nura Abarimi, at the knowledge sharing session organized by Nigerian Employers Consultative Association today. So, the mandate, I will begin with the mandate of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, which is industrial development, promoting sustainable industrialization by enabling local manufacturing and creating favorable environment for industrial hubs. Then trade facilitation, simplifying both domestic and international trade systems, including the enforcement of policies encouraging local content and exports. Investment promotion, advocating policies that attract domestic and foreign investment. Prioritizing private sector engagements and fostering entrepreneurship. Then the next one is inclusive economic growth. That's ensuring small and medium enterprises are integrated into key value chains to drive job creation and poverty alleviation. Now, coming to the Nigerian First Policy. The Nigerian First Policy, recently approved by FEC, aims to prioritize locally produced goods and services in government procurement processes. This policy is designed to boost local content participation, reduce dependence on foreign imports, and stimulate Nigeria's economy through strategic government spending. This policy aligns with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR Renewed Hope agenda's objective of driving industrialization, insulating the economy from global disruptions, and boosting local production. We can remember what happened during the COVID section, that everybody became to your tent, O Israel. So we need to develop our local capacity so that if anything happens, we know that we are covered. It emphasizes the need for all stakeholders to collaborate in consuming locally produced goods and scaling production to build a prosperous, diversified, and inclusive economy. Nigerian First Policy, we know that there's a demand pool. If there's a demand, the industries are bound to scale up. And when they scale up, there are ecosystem of SMEs that will come around to service that. So providing jobs. For the key objectives of Nigerian First Policy: prioritize local content. Government ministries, departments, and agencies must prioritize Nigerian-made products and services in procurement decisions. Of course, we can't be spending money during budget to budget for, we budget things, then we have local capacity, then we import those things. Is to our disadvantage. Then we boost domestic production. The policy aims to promote the purchase of made in Nigeria goods and services, which invariably promotes and protects local industries and reducing dependency on imports. Technology transfer and skill development. Contracts involving foreign procurement must include clauses which promote technology transfer, skill development programs, and local production partnerships. Moreover, skill development, as we are scaling up, we need to develop skills to match. Job creation. The policy is expected to drive job creation with over 800,000 created in the short term, as the manufacturing sector's growth is increased by 20% within the next 3 years. Then economic growth. The policy could expand the economy to a 3 trillion economy. Within that space, industrial development, prioritizing local content can stimulate industrial growth increase local production, enhance value addition in key sectors like the agricultural, manufacturing, and digital economy, and reduce import dependency by 30%. Nigerian first policies, economic opportunities and outcomes. We have the macroeconomic impacts. That's the Manufacturing Association of projects a 56% GDP boost and a 37% drop in unemployment if implementation is consistent. Then we have potential to inject 3 trillion into the local economy annually by redirecting government procurement expenditures. Regional and sectoral ripple effects. States like Kano, where leather abounds, Aba garments, known for garments, and Kebbi, like rice milling, are position localized industrial, are positioned for localized industrial growth through tailored procurement strategies. Revitalization of SMEs through long-term demand from government contracts, creating jobs and reducing poverty. As I said earlier, there's nowhere when procurement is consistent from local manufacturers, there's no way that an ecosystem of MSMEs that will service these companies won't occur. There will be an ecosystem of MSMEs that will service their requirements or their requests, because they won't be able to do everything. As they're scaling up, there will be people SMEs that will come around to do one or two things for them, indirectly or directly. Global competitiveness of creative industry. Nigeria's fashion, film, and music industry are globally significant and domestically under-supported. The policy could provide much needed structural backing. Then challenges to overcome. Of course, in every situation there are challenges, but the thing is to see it as a challenge to overcome, not something that will debar us from going forward. Then we have limited financial access for small enterprises, infrastructure deficits, unreliable power, poor road networks, lack of logistic infrastructures, and limited industrial zones could hinder the implementation. Capacity constraints. Many domestic firms lack the scale or certification to meet complex government contracts, which can be tackled. Monitoring and evaluation. A robust monitoring framework is necessary to track progress and address challenges. Then, to ensure the policy success, the government should prioritize infrastructure development, capacity building, and stakeholder engagement, which is part of what we are doing. Additionally, a legislative framework can provide a statutory legitimacy and institutional continuity. Then we have implementation risk. Part of the challenge is lack of political will or enforcement. We have previous initiatives and previous executive orders that have not been adequately implemented. So previous initiatives were undermined by weak governance and non-compliance, e.g. foreign cars, and for officials of government, still most of government officials still use foreign cars instead of using locally assembled cars. Quality assurance risks. Rushed procurement processes may lead to substandard goods, eroding trust in local manufacturers. That's where our local manufacturers too need to scale up, and they need to scale up. That's in their quality assurance to make sure that their goods and services meet global standards. Then policy fragmentation. Without subnational alignment, the policy could remain a top-level initiative with limited grassroots impact. That means this policy needs to go down to the subnational. Then recommendations for effective implementation, enforcement and transparency, empower the BPP with proper funding and autonomy while imposing penalties for non-compliance, ensure public sector officials lead by example by using Nigerian-made products, because a lot of our offices, when you go into it now, you see foreign furnishings, while we have some Nigerian furniture makers that can meet up the standard. Capacity building for MSMEs, offer training programs and workshops to help local businesses meet procurement standards. Provide incentives such as grants and soft loans to support production scaling. We are talking about access to finance for entrepreneurs, particularly in the creative, agro-processing, and light manufacturing sectors. Measure of success, concrete outcomes such as reduced import bills, higher industrial output, and greater SME participation in procurement must be tracked. Then institutional reforms to ensure policy continuity beyond political cycles. Then we have to see points on broader vision. In order to ensure swift implementation of the Nigerian Force Policy, there is need to ensure prioritizing transparency, rigorous enforcement, and inclusive stakeholder collaboration. The Nigerian Force Policy can emerge as a transformative roadmap for Nigerian industrial and economic renaissance. Still, its success requires steadfast adherence to both the letter and the spirit of the ambitious vision. Then economics of the Nigerian Force Policy represents a historic declaration of independence from global supply chain vulnerabilities, aiming to transform Nigeria from an import-driven to a production-driven economy. Because for an economy to stand, we must produce what we use, and use what we produce, whatever it is. A lot of countries did that. They locked their doors and then produced, and now they've taken over everywhere. Example, China. Social impact, it's supposed to restore national pride, create millions of jobs, and make government spending constructive for the local economy. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you very much for your session.
Thank you.
So we'll please ask that you please hold on, because we have an interactive session coming shortly after. I would like to please skip this particular the next session. We are still waiting to hear from BPE to join us, and I'll go straight to Mrs. Victoria Wadoka's session. Are you ready, Ma?
Hello. Okay, that was a surprise, but I think I am ready.
Okay,
if you could
we're
give
giving
me
you
the
hosting rights. You'll be able to share your screen. Yes, ma'am.
So just give me a second to get my slides primed. I was waiting for my turn patiently and taking notes, but it's all good. Let me see if I can share. Yes, I have the ability to share.
Okay.
So I'm going to be sharing my second screen. Please let me know if you see that.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay. All right. I'll just turn around a bit. So again, thank you very much, and really great to listen to that presentation from the Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, delivered by the Director, Madam Ajayi, Ade Ajayi. That was really good, and has spoken to some of the things that I would like us to take a look at. But nonetheless, we want to go through the slides. One thing that is important is that for us in Nigeria, we have to be intentional about really leveraging the potential that the Nigeria First policy delivers to us. You know, I was speaking to RMD recently. Some people need no introduction beyond their names, and his views were very striking because I mean, it's expected that we hear it from a minister or we hear it from Dangote, we hear it from other business people, but I mean, this is somebody who is in the creative economy. And with this tendency that we have to desire things that are external, he said one thing that really stuck with me. He said instead of always seeking to be elsewhere, we should learn to tap into what we already have here. We must stop seeking validation from outside. Nigerians should be able to build and succeed right here at home. We must make Nigeria a place where brilliance can thrive locally. Well, there's no way that we can do that except we intentionally build our economy. So the Nigeria First policy really creates that opportunity for us to drive growth locally, to grow our industries, to grow the SME space, and to create employment, which is something that we really need to do right now. Thinking that it's going to be easy is oversimplifying, but it can be done because there are organizations that are doing that already. Okay, so I think we've already listened to the fact that it was approved in May 2025, and it mandates prioritization of local goods and services by the government or parastatals of government. I think it also includes the subnationals as well. The one thing that is important is that, it is finally a framework that can structure the exports that we have already, and Madam Ade Ajayi already mentioned those. Nollywood, our fashion industry, our music industry. How do we put a structure around that? Even the fintechs, how do we put a structure around that to ensure that it helps to grow our local economy? Because more and more we see these businesses built and they're taken out of the country, okay, either to West Africa or to Europe or to the United States or to Canada, wherever. How do we create a structure that enables that to stay within Nigeria so that it can help to grow the economy? And I think that the DG, when he was making his presentation, alluded to that. Everybody has a part to play. The government has its part to play. Private sector, we have our part to play. As individuals and families, we have our part to play as well. Okay, so now the BPP waiver and all of that. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but what is important for us to note is that yes, we do have a register of Nigerian manufacturers, but we need to have a central register of Nigerian manufacturers so that when we want to import anything, we are sure that it is not available, or we're working with the already registered manufacturers to develop it. So if we're going to import, it's on the short term until we can develop that. I know that we have gotten used to asking for waivers, asking for exemptions and all of that, but that's a behavior that we need to begin to address. And I think that we've already talked about the issue of quality. We're not just going to buy because it is Nigerian. We need to do it and do it right, okay? Now, why does this business matter? This policy matter for businesses. It's not just about the prioritization of access to government contracts. It's also that it will begin to drive a shift towards local consumer behavior. Because yes, we are an economy that is already very dependent on government contracts and all of that. But imagine if we could tap into the whole economy, if we could tap into this over 200 million consumer base, this young consumer base. What if we could tap into that? And I was listening to the CEO of Zara Cosmetics, Zaron Cosmetics, over the weekend, and she said something. She was, trying to build a business, and not just to build a business, but to build a brand that will be global, a global brand, but starting from Nigeria. And she alluded to the pride that we have when we think about what Dangote is doing, especially with the refining of petroleum products right now. But you think about companies like Zara, like Zaron, and all of that, who have grown locally, who have really weathered the storms, built a local ecosystem, and is slowly exporting to other countries across West Africa. And as we look at, really the opportunities that we have with the AFCFTA, we really need to think about this and think about this very seriously. So, of course, there are increased regulatory expectations because you have to be compliant. Your business has to be properly registered. You have to make sure that your books are straight, your taxes are paid. Everything about your business has to be compliant. And in a bit, we're going to talk about, really embedding ESG behavior into our businesses. Of course, an advantage is that it will reduce forex dependency. And this is an opportunity for us to improve brand trust by ensuring good quality not just in our products, but in our services as well. This is a great opportunity for businesses. So I think that if I were manufacturing something today, I'll pay close attention. If I'm giving out services today, we'll pay close attention. And there are structures that are available that we can actually support when we begin to build that partnership, not just with backward integration, but with forward integration as well. We'll build those partnerships that will help to drive an ecosystem that will create a basic foundation for more businesses to come on board to service those industries, either as suppliers or as distributors. That is something that we need to think about as businesses, and those are opportunities within the value chain, each product group. Now, speaking about what businesses need to do, you need to understand the new procurement and compliance requirements of the government, because it is not just because you're a Nigerian company and then you go there and then everything is done. There are basic requirements. So that's the first step that you need to think about. What does it take to register, to be a supplier? What does it take to service those businesses? What do you need to do on a yearly basis? What do you need to have? So you need to take a look at that and ensure that your operations and your structures and the processes are really aligned to the new procurement and compliance requirements. Now, I spoke a little bit about ESG alignment and the benefits that would drive for communities. We'll talk about that in detail, so I'll leave that there. Now we're talking about localization of supply chains. If I look at even a business like Nestle, which is a big business and been here for over 60 years, and the challenges that we have are, really looking at our supply chain. How do you localize your supply chain to ensure that you're actually taking advantage of the opportunities that exist within Nigeria, not just supplying to the federal government, but to supply to the subnationals, because there's an opportunity that is created. I think recently I watched a video and it was Coscharis, talking about the electric buses that were built for Abia State. I mean, how do you make sure that you have a supply chain? Of course, the bus can drive there. Where does it drive on? Are the roads okay for it to drive on? Are there charging points for it, for these buses and all of that? So there's a whole opportunity. And those are different opportunities to create businesses. Recently, I was speaking to someone, not a Nigerian, but they're coming into Nigeria to invest in setting up charging points, because there is a company that is supplying electric bikes to companies who are involved in dispatch and deliveries and all of that. So these bikes are electric. And then the question was, how do we charge them? So they're investing in building charging points as strategic areas. So you see, there's so many ideas that we can really begin to think about for driving businesses in these sectors. How do we localize our supply chains? How do we create partnerships, not just with government, not just B2G, but B2B, to really position ourselves to grow in the long term? Of course, SON and NAFDAC, you need to really think about if you're producing anything that has to do with health, with food, with electricity, with anything, you need to think about who are the regulators and what do I need to do to ensure that my products are standardized. And looking at that standardization, because there is a standardization alignment that will support the AFCFTA, that is a good opportunity to start right now to ensure that you're meeting those standards and you're building towards those standards. And we are also thinking about looking at the cost structure. What is your cost structure? What makes you competitive? Somebody was talking about competitiveness. What makes you competitive? If everything that you need to use to produce is expensive, the output will be expensive. How do you reduce those costs? Are there any partnerships that we can build to reduce those costs? And this is where advocacy would now come in. Do we need the government to help us create an enabling environment? In which area? How can we support it? Can we start small as a pilot? Can we grow it from there? These are the things that businesses need to really look at not just as individual businesses, but as a community. And that's why a platform like the NECA for us is very, 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 very germane right now. This creates an opportunity for us to come together as industry and drive joint advocacy to get that enabling environment that we need to succeed as Nigerian businesses. Now, there is an advantage. There are so many advantages, not just for the businesses, but for our communities and for our country in the long run. And that's why I call the business advantage creating shared value, not just to grow my business and supply to government, but how can I grow my business, supply to government, build back pride in made in Nigeria products because they're qualitative, they're good, they can compete with any across the world. That is something that we really need to think about. So I already spoke about backward integration, investing in the local supply chains. That's something that we need to do. And what that does is to create a ripple effect of access to markets, access to a steady source of income, access to jobs for people in the rural areas all the way down, if you're in the agricultural supply chain like we are. And come to think about it, almost everything that we have as input in our businesses comes from some local government area. And that's why I'm really, really looking forward to the local governments really becoming more autonomous than they are right now and really driving initiatives to start from their strong points and develop their competitive advantage as individual local governments that will now feed into the global or the national economy. Now, one thing that we need to think about if we're thinking about, really growing that opportunity, not just to supply to government under the Nigeria First policy, because I'm hoping that will drive a ripple effect that would cause you and I to desire to use made in Nigeria products and to find them of good quality. Yes, there are products that are already of good quality. I mean, for instance, today, if you're thinking about cables, you're thinking about cables that are made in Nigeria, right? If you're thinking about cement, I don't think that we're thinking about importing it anymore. So there are opportunities for growth in those areas and in other value chains as well, not just these ones that are already existing. So how can we make our packaging more affordable? That also takes joint effort. What are the taxes on the current packaging that we have? How can we reduce that investment, so that we have an opportunity to increase, to reduce the cost of production to make this packaging materials affordable? And of course, if we're thinking about packaging materials, we have to think about how do we manage the post-consumption packaging waste, because that is another value chain. That's another economy that we can really begin to build. So there are many opportunities along that chain. Of course, we've talked about policy alignment, so I'm not going to dwell on that. Leveraging the tax incentives and every other thing that comes with that. And of course, the new tax laws creates more opportunities for us to have more money in our pocket, to improve to increase the number of people that we can employ, to also work slowly in the next 2 to 3 years towards reducing our cost of production, so that the cost of products on the market are reducing as well. Okay, so also a great opportunity here for creating strong brands on the concept of proudly made in Nigeria, quality made in Nigeria, that are good, not only for us in Nigeria, but are exportable. So, I mean, I look forward to a time where buying Nigerian is now as aspirational as it is for us today to wear Adire, to wear our Ankara proudly, to wear our Nigerian designs, and to hear our Nigerian music, to play it at parties, in clubs, everywhere that you turn, to use it in adverts and all of that. It wasn't this way when I was growing up. So we're making progress, and we can do it again in other value chains. How is it that today Nigerian fintechs are some of the strongest in the world? They're built in spite of the difficult economic, the difficult business environment that we operate in. So intentionality, being deliberate, being intentional, and being patient with the process to build, we can make a brand made in Nigeria aspirational again. Okay. Now, we're talking about embedding sustainable practices. A lot of times we look at sustainable practices as a cost center, but they're really an investment. And there are opportunities for cost reduction if you look beyond the initial investment in ensuring that you have processes that work. And interestingly, yesterday I was having a conversation with some friends and talking about how before I went back into paid employment, I was running a business. And I said, oh, I mean, thank God for all that I've learned working in Nestle, the process and all of that. And I'm going to go out when I go into the business world again to apply those learnings. And they said to me that outside there, I'm not sure that the people would like your processes and your structures. And I said, but I actually had those in my business, running as a small business in those days. Your HR structure, your supply chain, your waste management structure, your energy saving structure, your engagement with the community, your communication structure, your engagement with stakeholders. All those are things that you need to embed in your business to ensure that it's sustainable in the long term. But those are the things that you also need to embed in your business to ensure that you're compliant with the government's requirements under the Nigeria First policy. So thinking about what you need to embed, a circular economy practice, circular economy practices, right? Waste reduction. When you reduce waste, you actually reduce your cost of production. When you achieve more energy efficiency, you actually reduce your cost of production because energy is a huge cost. Do you need to transport everything one by one? Can you consolidate? How can you optimize your supply chain, your logistics? How can you optimize in all those areas so that you can lower your cost of production? So that helps you as a business, and that also helps our environment in the long term, even in the short term, really. Okay, then you need to think about inclusive employment and skill development policies and structures, right? And when you think about inclusive employment, when you're building, imagine, if you align your business and you're supplying to government, that means you're increasing you're increasing your revenue and you're increasing your profit at the same time, right? What does that mean? That means that you have more money to invest in creating shared value in your environment. So you're going to look at what areas of social development align with my business interests and my capabilities and my strong points and my focus areas as a business, so I can reinvest in the community. And Nestle, we call it creating shared value because it's something that you do that aligns to your business and creates an opportunity for that effort or for that impact to supply back into your business. I mean, an example is our farmer capacity building, which ensures that we get our raw materials throughout the year consistently and competitive prices as well. And also speaks at our technical training program, which NECA is one of the partners for one of the schools, because we're growing talent. They don't have to be employed by Nestle, but we're happy that we have this talent pipeline that ensures that we have good quality and skilled people who are coming into our workforce. So that is an area that we can look at. And of course, NECA has a skills development program that we can tap in as an ecosystem to ensure that we support it and that it helps to create an ecosystem of skilled workers. And in the permanent secretary's address, he talked about skills as well. So we need to think about those skills. How do we develop them? We need to be invested in it, whether it's in being the trainers ourselves or supporting an ecosystem. Imagine when we pull our resources together, we can do so much more, And then the other thing that we need to look at is at innovation and technology adoption. And recently, not too recently, because the first batch has graduated, NECA has gone into a partnership with Microsoft and a few others to really grow a pool of talents in technology, because technology is the future. We're talking about AI. It is driven. It is part of the technological transformation that we're going through now, and we must be able to have people who can engineer the AI, train the AI, and help us to achieve the results that we want by leveraging those tools and those capabilities that are available. So please invest in innovation, invest in training. There's simple apps that you can build within your system that lowers your cost of production and also drives more efficiency within your ecosystem. So that's something that you can look at, and really look at technology adoption. Of course, when we talk about e-commerce and all of that is powered by technology, and that helps you to even get to the hinterlands. Since COVID, we've seen a rise in businesses that are just online businesses. Before, there was a question of trust, and there is still that question of trust. But slowly we're creating ways of applying checks and balances to ensure that we are not being duped off by people who have no businesses. I mean, I was a victim. I had paid for the product and all that. I didn't even paid for an upgrade, and it was a fake business. And when I went back to start searching for the organization, I discovered that, I mean, this is due diligence I should have done before. So we're creating an ecosystem that has more trust. I mean, you're able to identify online businesses, and you're able to identify distribution companies that will help you to get your products, your services right down to those who need it most at the grassroots level. Of course, I'm not going to focus on the strong government governance and compliance, but that is something that is important. What do you do with your reporting? I mean, recently as well, I was speaking to a group of women who want to start businesses, and I said to them, there is something that is important, even with January coming, where companies who are not making above 50 million do not need to pay taxes. You still need to do your books. You need to keep basic books. How do you show that you're not making 50 million if you're not keeping the books? I mean, if the auditor comes in, what do you have to present? So let's be sure that we're really compliant and ensuring that we're able to maintain strong governance structures, strong compliance structures, because zero tolerance for non-compliance is the only way that a business remains sustainable. And of course, look at consumer-centric branding. Start with your consumer in mind. Start with your customer in mind. Start with your end user in mind. Don't build what you think is great. Start with that insight. I mean, even thinking about supplying to the government, where are the gaps? What does the government need? What do you need to do? So start with the consumer in mind and have that consumer-centric branding so that we can scale beyond just supplying to government to really supplying to every single Nigerian who has a need for the products or services that we deliver. And on the slide, I decided to put something that Aliko Dangote said, and he said that the only way for us to be a stronger nation is to patronize ourselves so that we can encourage local industries, we can create jobs and build prosperity. That is the only way to go. We don't have any other option. So whatever it takes, and we must engage with all the stakeholders. And that's what we're doing here today. That's why we have all of us sitting here in this room, this virtual room, and we're having these conversations. I'm going to have the interaction so that we go out from here with ideas or inspired or motivated to ensure that the Nigeria First policy succeeds. Because if we are not the champions or the first drivers of that conversation, nobody is going to drive it for us. So we need to engage, drive, hold the manufacturers accountable. Do not give me poor quality because I want to buy Nigerian. If it is not good quality, I am not buying. That's a way of holding us accountable and ensuring that we get the best possible services. Okay. And then, of course, there are risks and considerations. I think in the Permanent Secretary's speech, you also mentioned those. We have the capacity and capability gaps. We have the infrastructure challenges that really, really must be addressed. We have the inflationary risks. And I think that as we improve the infrastructure challenges, we're able to really drive down the inflationary trends. As we improve or reduce our dependency on Forex, we're able to drive down the inflationary trends. So those are things that are, dependent on each other. There are codependencies that we need to look at. Okay, so where is the enforcement consistency? Because there are recommended penalties for not complying with the Nigeria First policy. Can we be consistent in driving that? Can we ensure that we do not give exemptions or waivers lightly, that we do due diligence is very important. And I've engaged with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, looking for exemptions for my organization. And I was blown away by the due diligence, the visits, not just to our factories, but to our structures, to our suppliers. They went through the whole value chain. And I think that was excellent work. And I love that that is happening, because that is the only way that we can succeed. So that when an exemption is necessary, then we know it is necessary. And we are putting structures in place to ensure that backward integration is ongoing. And of course, there are trade tensions and all of that could create challenges within the ecosystem. And in the climate that we live in now, there's also the issue of insecurity that we need to think about. There's also the issue of broken down trust and all of that we need to think about. And as communications people, this is something that we're working on to ensure that we're able to influence and change the narratives around who we are and what we can bring to the table. Made in Nigeria products and not poor quality products, but we need to prove it. It's not when we say it and then when we buy the products and try to use it, then it is not the right quality. Trust is built over time, and I think that we can make that happen. And then, we have some success benchmarks that we can look at. If we look at South Korea and with the Chaebol, where the government, let's say, midwifed the growth of private industries, including Samsung, Hyundai, and all of that. And I think that is something that we really need to look at in Nigeria. And, the DG also already spoke to the passion, the investment, the commitment of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment and other stakeholders. With this in mind, we can actually midwife a process that enables private businesses, private industries to grow, supported by government, with the right financial structures, the right incentives in place to ensure that we're able to grow our businesses. Because really, what businesses need is not really for government to give us money and all of that. We just need an enabling environment, and we will grow our businesses. So we can work together, ensuring that the policies actually help, motivate, and not punish, right? And not, stifle. We need policies that enable us, that give us wings to fly. And I think that we are on the right track. And part of what we're discussing today is how do we get better going on. And we look at the Chaebol example, that South Korea is driving, and they're still consistently driving it to today. Recently, they've invested a lot in growing the use of technology and growing an ecosystem. They're still applying debates and tax incentives. So we can look at that model very closely and see what we can learn from there that we can apply to support our own economy. And then, the Brazilian economy has really grown on not just driving local demand, because if you're driving local demand and you're not empowering people to have the purchasing power, it's counterproductive. So Brazil has been successful in combining the two, driving demand for domestically produced products or local demand, and also driving social inclusion initiatives that empower the people to be able to purchase those products and services when they're on the market. So these are two examples that we can learn from and look at the details of how they made it work and ensure that we are imputing that in our build-up, enforcement, enablement, and also have a structure that enables us to succeed as a country. And in the last elections, there was something very popular, and I think we'll all remember it. Going from consumption to production, that is something that is really, really practical, and we can make it work by ensuring that we're creating social initiatives that help people to increase their source of income, and also driving local consumption and improving pride in the made in Nigeria products. Using examples of value chains that have succeeded. If we're also looking at the waste to wealth ecosystem, there's a lot going on in this area, and those are opportunities that we can begin to drive to ensure that we are recycling and supplying products made from those recycled goods into our ecosystem as well. Made in Nigeria vehicles, yes, someone says they're difficult, they're this, they're that, but if we're not encouraging it, if we're not using them, how do we even give feedback about them? So that's something that we need to begin to look at. And if the government walks the talk, I think that will encourage all of us to join the efforts to really help the Nigeria First policy succeed. We've had other programs where we have tried to drive made in Nigeria, like the Niger, what do we call it? Buy Niger project and all of that. This cannot be as one of those, because now this has a framework that is supporting it, that we can look at line by line, step by step, process by process, and ensure that we are doing all that we can to ensure that it succeeds. And then I want to just leave us with these two quotes, one by the Minister of Information, when the Nigeria First policy was launched. I said, when we choose to consume what we produce, we create jobs, we strengthen industries, and we build resilience. The Nigeria First policy is not just an economic directive, it is a sustainability strategy. Like I said earlier, there are no more sanctuaries for Nigerians. There are no more sanctuaries for Nigeria. So we need to build our economy, and Nigeria First is the way to go. We must put Nigeria first and grow Nigeria first, promote Nigeria first so that we can succeed. And also, finally, with this quote of Aliko Dangote, who said, Nigeria First is not about isolation, it's about empowerment. When we consume what we produce, we create a cycle of growth that is sustainable, inclusive, and proudly Nigerian. Yes, we can make it work. And with that, I thank you, and very happy to answer any questions during the interactive session. And I hand it back to Madam Adenike. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you for a very enlightening session, challenging us to ensure as businesses to give out good quality products, because that is what the consumer needs without any form of sentiment, encouraging us to be compliant with regulations. And those are some of the key takeaways that I took personally, and to take advantage of the various incentives that the government has put in place to aid businesses. Thank you very much, Ma. I can see a lot of thumbs up. I can see a lot of claps. Thank you very, very much. The last session is by the Bureau of Public. Oh, sorry. My apologies. The last session is from the BPE, from the BPP, that's the Bureau of Public Procurement, is going to be taken by Engineer Isaiah, Director Compliance. Director, Engineer, are you on? I think I can see you there. Director Engineer Isaiah Yusufu is going to be representing the Bureau of Public Procurement, taking us on the procurement processes and local content prioritization under the Nigeria First policy. So, sir, you have the floor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. As she has just mentioned, my name is Engineer Isaiah Yusufu, Director of Compliance. I'm standing in for the Director General of the Bureau of Public Procurement. He's currently in a meeting, and he has expressed his desire to actually still join in on this conversation because of his passion for the Nigeria First policy, which I'm sure we're aware that His Excellency, Mr. President, gave the mandate to the Director General of the BPP to drive the policy with all the relevant stakeholders. So he's going to join in. So I'm just holding forth, depending when he comes in, because it's a crucial meeting and he's trying to wrap it up so that he can be part of this conversation. Good morning again, and thank you for the privilege and the opportunity for the Bureau of Public Procurement to be speaking to this wonderful forum. The Nigeria First policy, as we all know, is not Nigeria's first attempt to try to build local capacity and to build our local industry. However, one of the challenges that we observed as a bureau from previous attempts by past administrations to kind of build this kind of local content and build a local industry was that the fundamental component that is required, which is procurement, was not really given the forefront or given a prominent role. I remember sometime in 20, when the executive orders were being established in the previous administration, particularly when it came to Executive Order 5, the Bureau made several attempts to try to guide, but we were not allowed to comment. So this time around, we are looking at all executive orders, all existing policies, all things that government had tried to do in the past. We are trying to bring everything together. And for the first time, we are in the process of developing a legal framework that will give legal backing to this policy. Because what we see has been lacking is policies don't really have that force of law when you compare them to a law. So we're trying to see how we can get all relevant documents and get the legal framework that this policy will ride on. And once that is done, it will help the local industry to really jumpstart or leapfrog, as it may be. Now, we've also been interfacing with other stakeholders, with Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, with NECA, with the Ministry of Industries. My DG has been having several meetings to try to see how we can all be on the same page in driving this policy. And we've also been speaking with the Nigerian Automotive Council to see how we could jumpstart at least that, even if it's the automobile policy, which seems to be the one that is one of the low-hanging fruits that we can quickly get rolling. And one of the things that we found out in our conversations with the Automotive Council was one of the fundamental problems that slowed down that automotive policy from really moving the way it should move. If we remember, since 2011, there's been a government circular that made it mandatory for government agencies to buy locally assembled vehicles. And of course, the whole idea was there was supposed to be some kind of building up local, small cottage industries that will be able to supply some basic parts into the automobile sector until eventually they will progress and become larger industries and they can stand alone. But one of the challenges that we got, one of the feedback we got from Automotive Council was it was not able to move in that direction because the players, the manufacturers were skeptical. There was no law. They didn't have the legal framework to give them the backing to invest. So they were all afraid to put in the kind of resources that was needed. So we are seeing all the lacunas and the loopholes in all the previous policies that government has tried in the past to kind of energize the local industry. And so with the benefit of hindsight now, and with the pivotal role that the Bureau is playing, bearing in mind that procurement is critical, the procurement component is critical to this policy being sustainable and even being successful. Like one of the earlier speakers said, bearing in mind the role of how government is such a major buyer in terms of equipment and all these things. So with all these benefits, all these things on the table, we are trying to see how we can harmonize, bearing in mind that there are loopholes, there are challenges, knowing how to see how we can put everything together and have a better framework that will help the local content to develop. And like the DG also mentioned in some other engagements, he has, based on this, our interaction with the automobile industry, one of the things that we've seen, even without any serious traction, just the fact that government is going to be more serious with this local assembly thing, we are seeing the prices of vehicles coming down by themselves, just because government is facing that direction. So we are very optimistic that this policy will not only help to build our local industries, even those vehicles that are coming in, the prices don't seem to really reflect what they should reflect. So we are optimistic that this policy will help to, okay. Sorry, I was not, I tried activating the camera, but I couldn't get it on. I think I was saving by straight up here now. So like I was saying, we're trying to see how this policy will take into consideration all these loopholes. And we've already started seeing that the cost of vehicles have started coming down, even without any framework in place. Just the fact that the industry is aware that government has commenced, or government is in the process of establishing a framework on local manufacturing. We are seeing that already that is sending a signal to the automobile industry, and then prices are, we are seeing some shift, downward shift in the prices. So it's a welcome development, and we acknowledge that it is something new, as it were, even though we've had attempts in the past, but nothing sustainable, nothing that could actually not really work in the way we expected it to work, or government expected it to work. So we are making sure that we close ranks with all relevant stakeholders. The Manufacturers Association of, like I mentioned earlier, my DG is in close communication with all the relevant stakeholders, particularly the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, NECA, to make sure that we get the input from them. Because I think part of the challenge we also observed is that when we do policies and we don't do that bottom-up approach, the people who are the people with boots on the ground, the manufacturers, are key. They know the challenges that they've gone through. Government has tried to do local content. Government has tried incentives. We're trying to borrow things from all over the world. Nigeria has its peculiarities. So this time around, we are looking inward. What are the issues our local people have? It may not be the same issues that China had. So if we import everything China is doing, it may not still work. So we are taking the approach is different now. We are working closely with the Ministry of Industries, with NACENI. NACENI is another critical stakeholder that we are interfacing with Automotive Council, with MAN and NECA and all these other people, because they've made attempts. They've tried this thing. They know where they hit brick walls. So we are pulling all that together to see how we'll now have a legal framework, bearing in mind that, knowing that from past experience, one of the challenges was no legal framework. So we are really struggling to get a legal framework that will give a lot of comfort to investors and make them know that they can actually put their money into this local industry. And from the procurement angle, the Bureau has already started enforcing, even without, like I said earlier on, we're developing a framework, but even without that framework, we are running on existing policies to enforce compliance. So we are making sure that, look, only those vehicle manufacturers, those health equipments that have been approved for use in Nigeria are the ones that are being procured, at least those that are within our line of sight. And of course, when we go on our audits, if there are anything that we see we're going to be more stringent in terms of compliance. Because if we go on our audit and we see that people are deliberately still flouting this regulation, then sanctions will definitely need to be meted out against defaulters, particularly when the defaulters are doing it deliberately. Because like it's been said severally on this forum, in this meeting, that no country will develop if the local industry is not given the opportunity to thrive. And it was said earlier on too, at the Bureau, we observed it during the COVID. It was, I don't know how to put it, it was God who helped Nigeria, because we're depending on foreign imports. If the anticipation of how COVID was supposed to be played out in West Africa and in Nigeria, it would have been a disaster, because the countries we're depending on were giving priority to their own citizens. So any export was probably second, third, or fourth layer in terms of priority. They were giving priority to their citizens, and their citizens, a lot of them were falling ill. There was a crisis all over the world. What saved us was that crisis did not replicate itself in the same proportion in Nigeria. If not, would have had. So it was the little things that we could get during that time that we used to stabilize. And you now find out that even after COVID, by 2021, the imports started coming. 2021, 2022, the imports started coming. Imports, orders that were made in 2020, everything was, the logistics was a disaster in terms of logistics management and all that. Nothing was moving. Airlines, sea lines, they were all grounded. So nothing could even move, even if they wanted to. So we saw that. That was a big lesson. That was a big lesson. And if we move even to the defense sector, part of the challenges we're having as a country is that we're not able to get a lot of equipment, military armament from our partners abroad. So we need, it is even more, which word will I is incumbent on us to make sure that our manufacturing, local manufacturing in the defense sector is ramped up. And that's why we see that even in that sector, there's a I'm sure some are aware of the DICON Act, where we are now giving priority to local manufacturing, whatever we can manufacture locally. There's a law that was passed that is making it mandatory that all agencies that want to buy at least the kind of things that armaments that and ordnances that can be manufactured locally, we should go to DICON. Because if we keep depending on them, we'll be at their mercy. So it is incumbent on us to ramp up our local industry. Okay, so I have just about 5 minutes more. I'm sure the DG is still trying to see how we can come on. Probably he will come on during the Q&A session. So basically, as I begin to wind down, I'd like us to please be assured that the Bureau of Public Procurement is on the saddle and we're not sleeping. We're not resting on our oars. We're doing everything, and we're not running solo. We're running with everyone and who we feel is critical to the success of this policy. And we're not doing the top to bottom approach. We are doing the bottom up approach. So even if you have, as all the participants, even if we've not mentioned you as a key stakeholder, but you have an input to make, the Bureau is open. We have lines that you can contact us with, emails. We have info@bpp.gov.ng. You could send suggestions to us. And we're going to be having public engagement, stakeholder meetings, where we'll be inviting people to please come. And I want to make this opportunity to say, please, whenever you see the invite, please come. And I want to make a patriotic call that it is not this policy now more than ever. So if you have a suggestion or an idea and you feel you have seen it somewhere, and if you feel it can work, bring it on board. There's no foolish idea. Everything is important. We need to get this thing working as at yesterday. So please, the doors of the Bureau are open for partnership. And I want to also thank our partners that have already started sharing ideas: MAN, NECA, Ministry of Industries, NASENI, DICON, the Ministry of Health too. Well, I didn't mention that in the Ministry of Health, because what we are seeing is that we are trying to, one strategy the Bureau is also trying to do it, we are trying to do it on a sector-by-sector basis. And we are starting with the automobile sector, and then along with the defense and health sector, where we believe that we already have things that are working there, not working per se, but we have policies there that are working, even if they're not 100%. So we look at them as low-hanging fruits that we can latch onto. So we're going sectorial instead of coming out full blast, doing everything at the same time and not being able to make any impact. We're going to do it on a sector-by-sector basis. So please, the Bureau is open to suggestions and inputs. And please be on the lookout for our, I won't call it roadshow, I would more or less call it stakeholder engagements, where we'll be inviting people to please come and make inputs so that this policy will work this time around. On this note, I think I'll just rest and leave the floor open, knowing that the DG will still be available to contribute, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much. We are delighted to hear that the Bureau is willing to get input from businesses. Thank you, because we are taking this one step at a time and not just going in full hog. Thank you, sir, because at least we know that we as stakeholders, we are important to the Bureau. Now it's time for the interactive session where you are going to be hearing from one of the stakeholders, which is the businesses. Those are the people that are here making inputs even from now, sir, and also to the ministry, question to the ministry. And to take this session, I will be yielding the floor to Mrs. Zainab Obagun, who is the second vice chair of the Corporate Communications and Public Affairs Committee. Zainab, you have the floor to take this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you to all our speakers for such an insightful session. They've done an amazing job. And now it's time for the Q&A. So please, if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat and I will read it out. Please drop your questions in the chat box, and we can take your questions. Now is the time to ask any questions you have on the Nigeria First policy and how it affects us. Adenike, I was also wondering, has the DG of BPP joined?
No, not yet. Not yet.
So while we're waiting for more people to ask questions, I have a question, and it can go to all three participants today. The first question is about how the government is enforcing the Nigeria First policy. So how do we ensure that we're working with our regulators such as NAFDAC and SON to ensure that if something is produced locally, it's then not brought into the country, as well as customs? I'm wondering who would want to answer that. Maybe we should start with Ministry of Industry and Trade with Mrs. Ajayi Ade.
Okay, and just before she answers the question, the DG of BPP has joined.
Okay.
And then you also have another question in the chat. Perfect.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. DG. I don't think you can hear us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good morning. It's my pleasure to join you. I apologize. I am caught in the multiple assignments, but I have joined. I would like to, can I go ahead?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I guess my colleagues have already said one or two things, but basically, let me first assure our critical stakeholders like NACA that the intention of the Nigerian First policy by the federal government of Nigeria is to bring the local businessmen and women and give them a sense of belonging. That's one. Two is to prioritize our own products, but at the same time, to ensure quality and global acceptability. It's very key for me to explain this. Thirdly, is that this policy is a policy, but we are just building the documentation and at the same time trying to
implement in some sectors. For instance, in the automobile sector, we've started by asking government agencies to patronize and buy locally assembled vehicles. That we have started gradually. But then we will enforce the implementation fully in the year 2026, along with developing the policy. And I'll just give you an example of what has happened in the last few weeks of this policy. For instance, a manufacturer here in the country, because of this policy, a year ago, we bought a vehicle for 58 million. By this policy, only a few weeks ago, it dropped down to 26 or 28 million. That's an example of how this policy can impact in our business climate. So I just want to assure NECA that this policy will be given to you. We would expect you to look at them, give us your inputs, make your suggestions, and let us jointly work together towards the implementation. It's very key. BPP is just to provide the policy, the framework, and enforcement. NECA and others, including NAFDAC, which is in the food and drug business. We also have the IT section. We have the other sectors, but we just started with the renewable energies, another sector. Agrican, every sector is key. Pharmaceuticals, but in summary is that the policy has been pronounced. We're building the document. So we look forward to working with you to make sure the document is robust, and then it will go through stages of institutionalization. Previously, what we used to have is Executive Orders 003 and 5, another circular, but now we are institutionalizing it in such a way that bidders local Nigerians can have confidence. And beyond this, is to be able to say government will be committed to procuring or buying those things from local manufacturer for over a period of time. There will be a lot of signings that will guarantee the investment of local farms. But then the local farms, businesses must also ensure that they provide highest quality of standards and comply with various standards across different industries. That Mr. President's directive is fully implemented on Nigerian first policy. Thank you very much.
BG, sir, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Though it was short, but very insightful. Can you switch on your video so that everyone can see you, sir?
Okay. So here am I.
Thank you very much. So we have a few questions, and I think some of these questions we will just direct to you and to Mrs. Ajayade from Ministry of Industry. So the first question is, what does the policy have on agribusinesses? I mean, those that manufacture and those that export. So is there a policy for agribusinesses? I don't know if you want me to read all the questions at once, or if you want us to do two at once.
Yeah, let's do one by one because my head is, I mean, okay, like I said, straightforward is that what we intend to do is to pick sector by sector and work with those in that sector to come up with the policy, with the Nigerian first policy in that sector. So for instance, in the agri and agro businesses, we'll work with the relevant critical stakeholder to customize the policy to address their needs and also get commitments. I hope that answers that question. So we have Ministry of Agri, we have some other people that will be seeking their support, and then Nigerian Export Promotion Commission too. there's NEBSA. So all of these critical people will be sharing with them and getting their input so that we can guarantee exports. I mean, basically, Nigerian products should be first as long as they meet global standards for exports. I think that's what I would say to that question.
Very clear, DG. Is there a timeline for this?
Okay, so yes, by the directive of Mr. President, it is already in implementation stage. And so what we're doing now is side by side with the announcement of the policy to start to see how we can use certain instruments of government. For instance, we have extant circulars. Our bidding documents will need to revise them and introduce the concept of Nigerian first into our bidding document. But like I said, we can't do, it's something that has to start immediately, like the automobile that started. So for 2026, I can't say much on the budget, but once we know what the budget is, we'll be making further pronouncement to all sectors that they must take Nigerian first policy in how they implement their 2026 budget.
Okay. So I guess the enforcement would be in how you are complying with the directive.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
very clear.
Yes.
Okay. There's another question we have here that says, how will the issue of multiple regulatory agencies be addressed, as there are some of the cost components that manufacturers have to deal with?
Okay. All right. My response will be, we're also going to hold a stakeholder meeting with these other regulatory bodies. That's by the side. Secondly, the people who have raised this issue should also send us a position paper. We'll be very happy to receive their comments and inputs because they are in the field more than us. They feel the pains. They know what is obtainable. So we'll be hoping to receive a position paper on how to address some of these issues that they have raised. Okay.
Can you send us details where they can send this position paper to?
Okay. We would, my colleagues are hearing me. We'll send you an email.
Okay.
And as well a contact number that will be the focal point of further discussion.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you, DG. So there's another question again that says, how can the government consolidate and harmonize the regulatory bodies and ministries to improve local manufacturing?
Okay. Thank you. Again, that's the role of BPP. I have to be very clear. And that's what we're doing now. It's BPP's responsibility to harmonize all existing policies. It's our role. So it's for us to do the needful. BPP's role, that's what the law says. All these other regulatory bodies can't do it because they don't have the mandate to do that. We have the mandate to coordinate, harmonize, review, issue new practice guidelines on this. So the responsibility is on BPP to coordinate and ensure that all the various regulatory bodies come to the same table to address all the issues and come out with a clear-cut policy. But don't forget, sector by sector, it's not generic. We have the food sector, we have the health sector, the pharmaceuticals, the automobile. So all of this will be dealt with as an ecosystem separately. Okay.
Okay. That's well noted. I think one of the areas that we struggle with, so I'm based in the food sector as well. One of the areas that we struggle with is the fact that there are a lot of imports and a lot of grains that come into the country. So you have local manufacturers who have established shop, but you also have a lot of imports coming into the country. You also have a lot of grains. Those are people who just bring in various containers, they are not
Yeah.
strong importers who are also coming in. And I'm sure 95% of people on this Zoom platform probably experience the same thing from their sector. Now we're wondering how is BPP working with all the other regulatory agencies that should be enforcing Nigeria first to ensure that these things don't come into the country. So for example, how are you working with NAFDAC? How are you working with SON? How are you working with customs, because these three departments are the primary enforcers of what comes into the borders of the
I
country.
agree.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and is there a way that private sector can also work with you to share a list of some of these, because some people they just import into the country. They are not building local jobs. They are not doing anything. And we are here, we're creating jobs, we're creating employment, and we're also ensuring that the value chain is also improved because we are localizing our value chain. And so I'm wondering how best can we support BPP in this Herculean task, because we understand it's a Herculean task.
Yeah, it is. That's why I said this partnership with NACA is critical. If NACA can help us come up with a lot of directions, information, documentation from a field experience, it's going to make it faster in terms of enforcement. Customs, we'll be having separate meeting with the customs, with NAFDAC, and SON. For instance, we're already in discussion with SON on how to put in our bidding documents in terms of how we want to go. So we're in discussion with SON already. We're going to be using a lot of technology to drive. And I'll give you an instance. If there's no SON label in some products or whatever it is, those government cannot procure those things. So that's the kind of direction we are heading to, working with SON, signed some MOUs, practice guidelines with each of these sectors, particularly the custom, SON, NAFDAC, and a few others. That's the way we intend to pursue, because we can't do it alone. We need the other bodies, and including NACA, MAN, NACIMA, everybody to come together, and then that's the best way. Multi-stakeholder approach will give us results.
Thank you so much, sir. I noticed we also have this comment from from Providence. It says this policy is good, but implementation is the issue, as we have had similar drives in the past. I hope all these processes will be digitized in order to avoid corruption and other factors that made the past policies fail. So it's just a comment for.
Thank you.
Yes.
Maybe you need to also add that where all we're doing henceforth is to be driven by technology. A lot of the problems will be solved through use of technology. I mean, in this country, there was a time we thought using all these payment platforms was not realistic, but today it is. So as much as I know we have our the confidence level, we are not too assured. But I think together, with the leadership that BPP is providing, we need to be hopeful, and we all work together, we can make it happen. If today I don't have to go to any telecom office to perform my functions, if I don't have to go to bank, I can't remember the last time I entered a bank to carry out a transaction, which some years back is not possible. But there was tenacity between the critical stakeholders to make it happen. I think we can do that too under the Nigerian First policy. We can make it happen together. And BPP will provide the leadership, will ensure technology is fully deployed, and sanctions where we see violations. Together we can, maybe you don't know, we have a debarment policy now, approved just a week ago. Those are the seriousness we're attaching to bad behavior either from government or contractors or things like that. Okay?
Thank you, DG. Your enthusiasm and your commitment to make this work is is quite contagious, and we're here to support you as members of NECHA to ensure that this happens, because it's in everyone's interest that this works, especially with the implementation of AFCFTA happening soon.
Absolutely.
Because what we want is for Nigeria to export to the rest of Africa, and not for Africa to make Nigeria a dumping ground. So
exactly,
it's critical for us to get this right and get it right quickly. I would pause for another 2 minutes to see if people have more questions. But while they're still getting their thoughts together, I had another question. In terms of working with customs on this Bodogo platform, because that's already digitized, is that something the agency is also working with customs on? Because that already has the key stakeholders who are necessary to help protect the borders of what comes in. Is that something that's happening?
Oh, yes. We are not going to reinvent the wheel. Let me be very clear. But we'll review and see how procurement will make it even beneficial to Nigerian business community. So hopefully in the new year, we'll be sitting with the management of customs to look at what they have, see how we can improve, but we don't intend to create a different technology where it already exists. More importantly, is for the policy framework and implementation to be strengthened. So that's what I will say. In all of this, we do not intend to create another technology if it's already existing, but we can improve on it and then put enforcement on it and ensure that all critical stakeholders comply. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, DG. We look forward to working very closely with your office to ensure that this becomes a reality. And in the absence of no other questions, I'll hand over to Mrs. Adenike Adebayo Ajala for the next phase of this. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to our distinguished speakers, and also really to the director of BPP, because he really made sure that he was in this conversation. I worked with two of your directors, assuring me that you will be here in person. So we are very grateful. Thank you very much, sir. We also want to appreciate the presence of Mrs. Olumuyiwa Ajayi-Ade, who represented the Permanent Secretary, FMITI, and of course, our wonderful chair of our Corporate Communications and Public Affairs Committee, Wadupa. Thank you very much for sharing the insight and the employer's perspective, and then, of course, what employers need to do. It has been a very insightful time with everyone here, and we also thank our wonderful participants. At one point, we're almost about 130 who stayed with us to hear about the first Nigeria policy and how we can key into it. I've also noted the email that we can send our position papers to. Thank you because to the BPP for showing us that they are willing to work with us, to work with the private sector, because at the end of the day, we are the ones going to drive it. So as we round up now, on behalf of my Director General, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, we want to say thank you very much to our distinguished speakers and also to our participants. Just one or two announcements. This is not the last KSS of the year. We have a few more coming up, because it is one of the things we try and do is to create opportunities and to spread information to our members. So on the 2nd of December, we are going to be having a KSS in collaboration with the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. The title is The Heist Online. It's a 90-minute session on corporate and personal protection conversation with security chiefs and the private sector leadership. So as we all know, security issues are paramount in everybody's minds right now. And so we are going to be having that conversation on the 2nd of December via Zoom. We encourage you to keep a date with us on that day. We also have another one also in December. It's called the ESG State of Play Report Launch Conference. And we are also inviting you to be part of that conversation. While the heist is virtual, the State of Play is going to be a physical event. The registration details are on the screen so that you can register for the program and join us for the physical event. The venue will be communicated to all registered participants. The theme is improving employers' effective participation, awareness, and fostering dialogue on ESG among stakeholders. We know that ESG issues are front burner issues. Even Madam Chair, Mrs. Waduka, mentioned it during her presentation on the fact that it is a cost-saving opportunity for businesses when you incorporate ESG into your operations. So let's see how we can reduce our cost during the program. And then our last KSS for the year is on the 9th, as you can see, is a triple event, the evening before the tax reforms implementation, which I know we will want to know. What else is there to know? We have put together some very, very distinguished guests that will be here, including the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. So we are going to be talking all about tax on the 9th of December 2025, and that will round up our KSSs for this year. Now, first in January, we are going to be kicking off with a collaboration with the International with the NSITF on Safe Work Intervention Project, and it's going to be an awards for those organizations that have proven that they have their safety and health systems in place. Is going to be taking place in 3 locations: Lagos on the 20th of January 2026, Enugu on the 22nd, and then Abuja finally on the 27th of January. So we invite you to keep a date with us in January, and these programs are all free and open to MSMEs and all businesses so that we can celebrate those who have been very good in putting their safety systems in place. And finally, we have our International Labor Arbitration and Adjudication Forum that will be taking place on the 12th of February 2026 in Abuja at the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. And we are going to be discussing labor justice, building a consensus for a peaceful industrial relations ecosystem. We have 2 international speakers flying in, one from Brazil and the other one flying in from the IOE, that will be with us, and we can see the array of distinguished speakers that will be at that event. So we ask that you please keep a date with us. We ask that you block it in your diaries and that you please participate actively. Once more, I would like to say thank you to everyone for staying with us, and we look forward to having you again at our next knowledge sharing session. My name again is Adenike Adebayo Ajala. I am the Director, Social and Labor Affairs, and we thank you for being here. We wish you a productive rest of the day. Thank you, sirs and ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thank you very much.